Okay, so this is our final panel, and at this time I would like to bring all of them up. I am going to, though, do a brief bio of Christie Lee as they're all coming on stage, and then she's going to individually introduce each one of them. So if the team want to come up, that would be swell. In your order. And Christie Lee is the State and Local Affairs Director for United Launch Alliance, along with the Space on the Space Coast Panelists. Just to say a few words about Christie, she's been at United Launch Alliance for over 3 years, coming from her prior experience at Lockheed Martin for almost 10 years. She's a board member of the Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce. Man, I wish you were here. The Denver South and the Colorado Springs Business Roundtable. She comes with a wealth of information and the perfect moderator for our Space on the Space Coast wrap-up. So without further ado, Christie Lee.
Well, thank you. I'm tall. Let's see. All right. So she said I've been at ULA 3 years and Lockheed at 10, so you know I'm at least 13 years old, but we won't. But first of all, I just would like to thank Nancy and the whole Palm Bay Chamber team for what an amazing event they put on today. And for the dump of candy right before our panel on the tables. I really appreciate the sugar rush. You know, every profession has their thing, like smelling salts for athletes. We get sugar right before we come up to a panel, so excited. Like Nancy said, my name is Christie Lee. I'm the State and Local Affairs Director for United Launch Alliance. We are also a rocket launch company here at the Cape. For over 2 decades, we've launched everything from commercial satellites to exploration payloads to national security missions. And we like to say at ULA, we save lives, whether it's launching GPS satellites, military communication satellites, weather satellites. We also explore the universe. ULA has launched every US-led mission to Mars, which is really cool. And we've also done human spaceflight as well. And then also we connect to the world. So we do a lot of communication satellites as well. So we do a little bit of everything. And we're really excited to have our new rocket online, Vulcan, that we've developed over the last 10 or so years, taking our 2 legacy systems and taking the best of both of those and developing our own rocket. We just had our first national security mission last week. So we're ready to go with Vulcan. It's a big day for us, so super exciting. And I also have a video to show you that will highlight Vulcan and what it can do. Thank you.
At ULA, we launch rockets. We design and build rockets to launch spacecraft that no other company can. And with the introduction of the Vulcan rocket, ULA enters a new era of space capabilities with higher performance and the world's only high-energy architecture rocket, delivering any payload, at any time, to any orbit. Our tireless drive to improve and our commitment to the extraordinary is what makes us ULA.
That's much more exciting than me. Cooler looking, cooler sounding. So let's get into it. I know we're the last panel between not only you and drinks, but also you and an astronaut to just, make the pressure even more. So we'll get right into it. I'm gonna let each of our panelists take a few minutes to introduce themselves and what they do. And I believe some of us have videos and presentations. So Debra Facktor, the SVP of Space Systems for Airbus U.S. Space and Defense. I'll let you go first.
All right, thanks. Is this on? Thanks, Christie, and great to be here on the Space Coast. Thank you, Palm Bay, for a wonderful day. I'm Debra Facktor. I run the U.S. space business for Airbus U.S. Space and Defense. Our center here on the Space Coast is around small satellites, which we're building out at Exploration Park, the former Airbus OneWeb satellite facility, which is now fully Airbus U.S. And my portfolio is small satellites, space exploration, as well as space products. I've been in the space business a very long time, back to strategic defense days and collaboration post-Cold War with Russia and Ukraine, which led to Russia being in the International Space Station, and also did a couple of startups in the launch vehicle industry before SpaceX and Blue Origin were ever born, with reusable launch vehicles, with Kistler Aerospace, and then Air Launch. And then went into the satellite side at Ball Aerospace and joined Airbus US about 6 years ago. So really happy to be here, share a little bit more about our investments in the US, how we're collaborating across Florida, and really the ecosystem for getting cool things into space, whether it's for constellations or going back to the moon or Mars, and all the impacts that we have back here on Earth. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And we'll move down to Paul Zima, the Eastern Range Manager from RGNext.
Yep, I've got a PowerPoint presentation, which is kind of tough considering you've seen videos. We're the last thing before the drinks, and now I'm going to tell you what we at RGNext do. We're a conglomerate between Raytheon and General Dynamics, and we are the company that is behind everything you've heard today. So the elevator speech is real quick. We're not NASA, we're not ULA, Airbus, Vaya, or Boeing, but they come to us and ask permission to launch rockets. We do the scheduling, we do the planning, we do all the ground hookups between radars and everything else it takes to get a rocket off the ground. So as I said, we are a joint venture, and essentially we are on 2 coasts. Next slide, please. This is us. On the Eastern Range, we operate both on the east and west coast, Patrick Space Force Base and Vandenberg Space Force Base, and each of those have satellites. For instance, at JDMTA, Jonathan Dickinson Missile Tracking Annex, way down in Jupiter, Florida, yes, we can see Tiger Woods' house from our place. Ascension Island, 7,000 miles south of here. I've been on that flight many times. Take a book, take a set of headphones. Then, of course, Vandenberg, they've got Pillar Point. We do all of the launches, whether it's DOD, which is what mainly Ascension Island is for. We do a lot of DOD. We also do a 24-hour space track mission. So 20-some thousand pieces of space something up there, from the size of the ISS, International Space Station, to basketballs. We track it all. One of the many radar stations on Ascension Island, we operate that as well. Next slide, please. So this is us. Last night you had that Chamber of Commerce moment, the loud rocket, the sonic boom. And what we've done is we've been in business here for just completing our 11th year in since 2015. And as you can see by this slide, it's not just the launches, it's the attempts. Okay, so as we look at the enterprise, both Eastern and Western Range, you can see we're both very busy. We not only count the launches, we count launch attempts. There's about a 20% non-launch rate, which means weather, sometimes the rocket company, sometimes ground systems. I'm also, unfortunately, the only manager for either range that has actually scrubbed a launch because of ground systems. I had a radar go bad on me one time with a rocket. That happened 2 weeks after I took over. I didn't get fired, so I'm sitting up here. Still a good day for me and my wife. But yeah, this is what we do. Next slide, please. And this is the Eastern and Western Range totals. As you can see, we've been busy. Over the last several years, how do we do it? Well, there's an old quote, it's kind of a takeoff from what an old BASF commercial back in the 70s, Donald Rumsfeld said it a while back. You go to war with what you got, not with what you want. Now think about that. We've heard about the most modern rockets on the planet. They're launching, they're landing, and we've got new rockets on the way. But your Eastern Range has got a radar on it that was installed in 1963, and it still operates. What this slide is showing you is the scene behind the scenes. Each range completes about 1,000 level 1 or preventative maintenance actions every single month to keep that system going. That's how we get rockets off the ground, and that's what RGNext is.
Great, thank you. And before we move on to our next panelist, just a reminder, there are the cards on the table. If you do have questions, please fill them out, and one of the team members will hand them to me. And I am immune to questions since I am the moderator, so just keep that in mind. So we'll move over. Kevin Lowdermilk is the CEO of Vaya Space.
Yeah, I'm Kevin Lowdermilk, CEO at Vaya Space. How many people are familiar with Vaya Space? The number out there? So I spoke at the Space Symposium in 23, and my mom and 2 other people raised their hands. So the progress is being made here. Happy to see that. Vaya Space is a space and defense company. We're leveraging hybrid engine technology really to kind of change the game, both in the space sector and also in the defense segment. On the space side, we are very different. We're not going down the path of reusability. We're going down the path of simple elegance is the way that we look at it. A hybrid engine really is a hybrid engine powered rocket. About 1,000 fewer parts than a liquid bipropellant powered rocket. That much less cost, that much less weight, that much more payload to space. Also that much better production cadence, if you will. So that's the way that we're going about the launch mission. From a vehicle standpoint, we're about 1,000 kilograms to low Earth orbit, a little over a ton of capacity. Every mission that we fly will be taking about 7 or 8 metric tons of recycled plastic off the planet. People say, well, that's great, but you're also burning plastic. Well, because we burn them so efficiently, our emissions are CO2 and water vapor, so we're actually really the greenest rocket company on the planet, we believe. So, you know, doing some pretty unique things with the technology and the capability. The hybrid engine really is really well suited for not only those space kind of applications, but also for a lot of defense applications. So we're involved with Golden Dome and the Golden Dome architecture for a hybrid engine, the ability to start it, stop it, relight it, the ability to throttle it from 100% throttle down to 20 or 30% throttle and then back up again. Makes us pretty unique for missiles, for hypersonics, for things in those domains. So we're right in the middle of those things today. What I say is we're kind of at the intersection of leveraging dual-use technology in some pretty innovative ways, both for space and defense. So, thank you.
Great. And our last panelist is Natasha Wiest. She's the Deputy Program Manager of the Space Launch System out at Boeing.
Yes, so I have a video to show you today. I think it's pretty cool, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. So much pride and emotion seeing that Artemis 1 launch, and we're so looking forward to Artemis 2. On Artemis 1, I was the Boeing SLS launch leader, and I continue in that role, as well as the core stage deputy program manager. For over 7 decades, Boeing has been working alongside Kennedy Space Center to advance space exploration. Since the 1950s, our teams have worked on programs like Apollo, Gemini, powering Space Shuttle, and now Artemis. As well as Artemis SLS on the Space Coast, our teams support the ISS program, X-37B, and commercial crew. I'll talk a little bit more about those. We're really excited going into 2026. We have some critical milestones ahead of us. We have the Artemis 1 launch, and we have Commercial Crew launching as well. So an important year. And that will reflect back on thousands of hours of innovation and dedication with customers, suppliers, partners to get to those milestones. On SLS, the rocket is currently stacked in the VAB on the mobile launcher, and we're awaiting the Orion space capsule in preparation for launch, which is no later than April 2026. So we have teams out there working hard, really excited. The even cooler part is for the first time ever, we have multiple rockets processing in the VAB at the same time. We recently moved Engine Section 3 to High Bay 2 in our brand new Core Stage Vertical Integration Center. And we also have Core Stage 3 engine section in the transfer aisle. So a lot of hardware being processed for those future deep space missions. On our Starliner program, NASA and Boeing are working towards crew certification, and they are progressing towards the propulsion anomalies from the last flight test. On ISS, we have teams in Florida, Marshall, Johnson, who have all been working for the last 20 years on sustainment and operations of the ISS program. On X-37B, Kiko mentioned waking everybody up last night. We are happy they did, because we launched OTV-8. That's the 8th X-37B mission, only 6 months after the 7th mission. So quick turn there. If you're not familiar with the X-37, it's similar in design to a small space shuttle, but it's only about 29 feet from nose to tail. And that X-37B has logged more than 4,200 days in space. So we're pretty proud of that program. On the Space Coast, we are doing some cool things. We have critical partners that we're working with, like Space Florida and the Space Force and Range, and they are allowing us to do some of this amazing work. And going forward, we are dedicated to these missions and what's next, and looking forward to building space for the future of security and for the benefit of all. So thank you for having me here today, and looking forward to the discussion.
Great, thank you. And just for the people in the back, there is a screen right here, so I wasn't just staring at the ground when the videos were playing. I just realized, like, everyone's looking this way. I look like a weirdo looking down there. But just so you know, I was also watching the videos. So I have a few prepared questions, if nobody has submitted any yet. So I'll start with kind of a softball, but I like, just because there's so many amazing things going on in space, especially here at the Space Coast. You have, obviously, Vulcan, I have to say that first. And then we have Blue Origin's New Glenn coming online. We have Artemis going. You just heard all the amazing things SpaceX is doing. So with all these things happening, I'd love to hear from each of you, what's the most exciting program that you're either working or that you're following, that you're excited to see progress and come to fruition in the next few years? And Natasha, I'll start with you and come this way.
I think Artemis is the most exciting thing we have going on right now. Like I said, I'm really excited about this upcoming launch. The first one was just so powerful and went so much better than we expected. And the exciting part is where we can continue to go, continue to build on each mission. This first one will take astronauts around the moon into lunar orbit for the first time since Apollo. Then we'll go land on the moon, and we'll continue to build from there and advance the technology with our exploration upper stage, which is currently being built in New Orleans at MAF. So just really looking forward to the future of Artemis and what it has to offer.
Great.
I think from my perspective, I'll start at the macro level. I love Artemis and everything about it. I'm really looking forward to seeing humans get back to space on a regular basis. I think the Gateway program is another natural extension of that, being able to have a space station that's outside of low Earth orbit that's going to allow us to transition not only to the moon, but then transition from there to Mars and beyond. So I'm looking forward to that one. I think the other interesting one out there at the macro level is the ISS replacement. If you look at what's happening now, the ISS has been up there. We've had people in space for the last 25 years continually. We need to have people in space for 30 years continually in order to get the next generation of the ISS up and operational. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that progresses. And then at a macro level, to this table 7, I'm really excited about the aquarium and the aquarium coming to the Space Coast here sometime in the near future as well. I think that's a big plus. We were talking about it a couple of years ago at the Space Symposium. It's really great to see that that's moving on. From a Vaya Space perspective, we've got a number of things happening. Certainly our Dauntless launch vehicle, we won't launch until 28, so I'm looking forward to getting that off of the ground. But we're working on a number of other programs that I think are interesting for the space community. It's one thing to get to a planet. It's another thing to leave the planet and bring samples back home. And there are a number of folks that are working on these programs, but a hybrid engine is really, really well suited. For a lunar ascent vehicle or a Mars ascent vehicle, we can handle pretty drastic temperature variations. We can sit on those planets for a long period of time before we lift back up off of those planets. And so we're hoping that hybrids have a home in those kinds of missions moving forward. The other really interesting one, we talked this morning about making things in space. We've actually been asked by the DoD to take a look at, because we're what we call elegantly simple in terms of our technology, could you make engines off of the materials on Mars? And so our team right now is actually looking at what would it take to be able to produce an engine to provide the thrust capability that would be needed to do some pretty interesting missions from just what's on Mars today. And those kinds of programs for me are just the fun ones that when you think about the future.
Well, with RGNext, we're not so much in the technology realm, but our greatest challenge is what we're looking for in the future, and I want to build on some of the words that were said previous. Rob Long got up here and talked about the growth in space. That's the first speaker we had today. And he talked about how we're ramping up. And believe it or not, there are 10 separate launch service providers working on the Cape, building space pads, launch pads. ULA's been here. They've been our stable forever. We love that with Atlas, Delta, and now the Vulcan. Falcon, of course, everyone knows about. You name it, it's out there. But in our first year, 11 years ago, we launched 11 rockets off the Cape, and that was pretty cool. Well, this year, and we work on the fiscal year basis, last night we launched our 96th rocket, and we're heading to 120 before the end of September. So our biggest challenge is not only technological, but with the human capital of its compression. Years ago, we had a wing commander, before we became a Space Launch Delta, that talked about the road to 48. Well, and we always talked about 2 in 24. How can we launch 2 rockets in 24 hours? Well, in my tenure as the East Range manager, we've done that 27 times. We missed 3 in 24 by 23 minutes because a certain launch provider delayed their launch. And I'm not sure where Kiko is, but he hurt the record there. But in order to become a true spaceport, if you picture an aircraft that doesn't make its gate time, there's another aircraft that's going to replace it. That's what a true spaceport needs to be. And that's what we need to work on with the human capital, with technology, with innovations to when the next rocket can't go where they scrubbed. And that's why I mentioned the scrubs and the slips. Slip is when we move a rocket launch before we take the count. A scrub is one where we're already sitting console. We need another rocket to step up into place and go right away. And it's the launch service providers that are going to help us work through that. That's what we see as our biggest challenge at RGNext.
So asking to pick a favorite mission is like asking to pick your favorite child or something. But maybe I can also ask, because if my video was available, let's show that because it'll give you a little teaser of all those favorites. So starting in order, my most favorite right now is building our next series of satellites. We've already built over 700 satellites down here at Exploration Park. As I mentioned, over 650 are on orbit. The entire OneWeb constellation was built in that factory, and now we have transformed it to build the Aero 450, as we call it, and a backlog of over 130 satellites for Northrop Grumman for the Space Development Agency. This is a really cool platform because it's both for communication as well as sensing missions, and we can also do a multitude of other ones. But having both of those on contract and in production today is super cool, aiming to get the first part of Tranche 1 for SDA. I think the launches are planned later for this year, cross fingers. So that's super exciting and has been a great support of the Space Coast, in fact. You know, the next thing, talking about ISS and its transition for retirement. So while there's a lot of exciting research going on now, I have to say we're already looking ahead. I sit on the board of Starlab, which is our joint venture with Voyager Technologies, Mitsubishi, MDA Space from Canada, and Palantir. And this is really looking at a commercial next generation space station, all privately funded, and there's just some tremendous development going on for the future, and by the time of the retirement of ISS in 2030, being ready to go prior to that. And you know, a lot of talk about Artemis. We're super proud. You know, Airbus is the first time in the Artemis program where an international prime has had a major role in the mission. While there's a lot of collaboration reflected with European Space Agency and NASA through the barter program, this time Airbus's contribution of the European service module that powers the Orion capsule front and center. So it's really cool to see all the U.S. primes and Airbus as a European prime coming together for that mission. I think it really shows the importance of collaboration and doing all the exciting things. No company, no country can do it alone. And here in Florida, everybody comes together to do just that.
Great, thank you. So I had some prepared questions, but we got 3 from the audience, so very exciting. So I'm going to put these in the order of the best handwriting, is how I'm going to do this. So the first question's interesting. Who is your favorite moderator today? That's not it. So the question is, what do you think is the biggest challenge as we expand space travel and space exploration? Just an easy one.
Well, I'll throw out there, I think a lot of the challenges, you know, we tend to focus on technology and how are things going to come together to be mature enough. But I think our biggest challenge as we talk about transportation and humans living off the planet permanently, frankly, is just ourselves. It's people, it's pulling together teams that have the skill sets, have the vision, have the appetite for risk, are willing to do things differently, and challenge some of the assumptions that frankly, we just put in our own heads, or our cultures put into our heads, or the behaviors in our different organizations. So overcoming that, because I think we all have a passion for space and exploration and what it enables, and then just having the appetite to overcome everybody who, all the naysayers, like, well, that's never going to happen, or it's going to be too expensive, or technology is not invented. Anything is possible, and galvanizing all that human capital and energy, I think, is super important.
Anyone else want to?
Yeah, I like to add it. I think you mentioned it. Is a lot of it is risk assessment. Okay, and congestion. When we get all the launch providers, and there's a road on a Cape, ICBM Road, which is for the most part where all the launch complexes are until you get in the Kennedy Space Center, you've got companies right on top of each other. So when one is doing a hot fire or testing the engines, another company may not be able to work on that pad. So what's the assumed risk? So as we get more congested and more compressed, we've got to assess the climate as what is a real risk and what is a realistic outcome. And where is that? Because the only way we're going to get faster, better, and smarter and get those, that not only humans, but those essentially, now think about this, the nation, the world is at a constant state of conflict. If you need a satellite to get up now, how are you going to do that? And what rocket provider, what launch service provider can do that? And what do you need to clear out of the way? So as we move toward eliminating congestion, it wasn't but a couple years ago, we used to never be able to work on or dig on the Cape or build on the Cape within 48 hours of a launch. And we just launched a rocket last night, and the next one's going up Sunday. If those same rules applied, no work gets done on the Cape. So we've got to be able to deconflict on the fly, automated systems, decompress our Cape, and use the human capital to not only decompress the automated systems, but allow us to work together so we can actually get things to space faster.
Yeah, I think best case scenario, even with all that, you're still going to have so much congestion on the Cape moving forward if we're even half as successful as we all kind of intend to be. So I think you got to look at beyond what we currently have, and Launch Complex 13 is where we'll be launching from. We intend to launch from there just as many times as we can, but we also have to look at what are the other alternatives, and we're looking at actually launching offshore. Our rocket's simple enough, small enough that we're able to potentially launch from a sea-based platform. We intend to do that. We're also actually looking at inland launch, being able to launch from a couple of states, more remote states. Given our rocket's inert, it can't blow up. The fail-safe on our rocket, where most of the time you press the button and blow up the rocket, the fail-safe on our rocket is you press the button, the whole rocket drops into the ocean. It's completely inert. So a little bit different animal. It puts us in a position where we can launch from inland, having proven ourselves a few times on the coast first, of course. So that's one challenge. And I think the other challenge in terms of just the human capital for making things come together as we look at beyond the moon, it's all the integration of the different technologies, right? We all have a piece of what's required for us to be able to be successful, but integrating those technologies in a way that takes us from the moon to Mars is a major task. And we're a small part of that. Everybody here is a bigger part of that. And getting it all right is, I think, something that's pretty important.
Yeah, I agree with the panel. Another challenge that I've encountered as the Space Coast grows, the need for more talent grows as well. And it became very competitive when new commercial space providers came in. So we need to continue to increase that talent pipeline. Boeing works with all different university partners. We have strategic agreements with Embry-Riddle, with FIT, with UCF, with a lot of our regional schools to bring in STEM studies to build that talent pipeline. But I think we also need to build the trade pipeline as well. And I think that area is still lacking in this area. Welders, technicians, that skilled labor. It's not just about engineers. Those aren't the only resources that we need. So I think there still is work that needs to be done there so that we have enough talent for all of us to go around and we're not, continuously trading across programs and companies.
I'm so glad you brought up workforce, because that brings us to the next question that was submitted. Where do you see the greatest opportunities for training and workforce development in the space market? Who wants to kick us off?
I can. I mean, I think the good things are happening. You heard some of that today with Space Florida working on their programs. We have some good apprenticeship programs that are happening on the coast right now. Lots of good internship programs. You've heard lots of speakers talk about the interns that they brought in for the last year or so. We had 14 or 15 in, and we were able to hire 3 of those. So this Florida Tech table, you guys give me your information. We're looking forward to having you guys. But I think, that there are good things happening. It's just not enough of it yet. And I think it is true to say that we're better on the engineering technology side of the house than we are on some of the manufacturing pieces of it. But progress is being made.
Anyone else want to comment?
You're talking, saying all the right things of apprenticeship programs, internship programs, in-house training programs. I will say we've had huge success with the apprenticeship program that we did, access that Space Florida helped arrange, and some of our top technicians who have gone through that program coming right out of high school. And it really does, we have a lot of emphasis on STEM. I'm a huge proponent of that, and obviously need all the engineering talent that we can get, and then also realizing it takes a village. And I love the diversity that we have in our factory. A couple of our team are here today, and they come from all backgrounds: space, automotive, pharmaceutical, construction, different industrial backgrounds. And it's that kind of thinking when you think about systems engineering or systems thinking, when you get different backgrounds and disciplines all together, that helps us create more than going in our traditional mindset of how to build satellites or how to launch rockets. So it's another way of tapping into talent in Florida, is thinking about the other industries and bringing them into ours, which requires a different kind of training. And think of how we set up our processes, paperless environment, more use of AI, things that you can do that really help where the human is in the loop, that can also cut down on time and increase how we can bring more people in who might be intimidated by working in space and think that they have to have a PhD to come into our industry.
Yeah, I'm going to take a little bit different twist, and I really love what we're talking about the trades. Earlier panel, somebody said, well, what brought you here? What brought me here was my dad bringing me to Air Force recruiter, because when I was 17, he says, you have two choices. You can move out or you can move out, but you are not living here. After a 25-year career, met an absolutely wonderful woman. We bred two beautiful kids that are taxpayers right now. And what I've learned over the years is you can teach a skill, and you can go to college and you can learn a skill, but what you can't teach is attitude, enthusiasm, and passion. And that starts at home, and that starts in the classroom. And that's what I think we need, because we put so much emphasis on, and not to belittle anything, but on higher education, that to find somebody that is willing to climb a 500-foot tower to repair an antenna on the Space Coast is hard to do. But we need that. And if we don't have that, the weather systems don't work, and if the weather systems don't work, we don't launch rockets. So it starts at home, it starts in the classroom, and we've got to constantly emphasize that college and athletics are not the only path. Attitude, passion, and just get out there and get it done is really what we need to help the Space Force.
Great, thank you all. So, Natasha, I have a direct question for you. I know. You can say pass, it's fine. I'll go to the next one. But can you provide an update on the exploration upper stage development timeline?
That's a good question. The timeline. So EUS is going to be launched on Artemis 4. Right now, we are doing a lot of work at MAF, like I said, working on welding, assembly, which will kick us off for integration. So we are tracking to have EUS ready and delivered for the Artemis 4 mission. We're doing a lot right now. Like I said, with staffing, we're actually bulking up staffing in New Orleans. So if you know any good engineers, techs looking for jobs in New Orleans, they're staffing up down there as well. But I think we're on track for an Artemis 4 mission.
Great. Let's see. I'm going to make this, so this is a specific question, but I'm going to make it a little bit broader. What do each of your companies offer to the local schools and their school districts, and just engaging with students? Do you have programs at that level, and what are you doing there? So.
Yeah, I can start. We have a couple different programs. Boeing works with, actually today, my coworker Brandon was with Genes in Space Group. So that's a program that we worked with ISS National Laboratory for high schoolers. They came up with ideas for experiments that could fly to the ISS, and they were awarded that, and they got the opportunity today to go over to the VAB and check things out there. So that's a pretty cool program. We're also involved in early education with Destination Moon, which is a competitive type program. Same type of idea. We do a lot of classroom-ready STEM materials. So we have ready-made kits that will go into classrooms, and they have to do experiments and different STEAM activities. So quite a lot throughout Brevard Public Schools.
Great. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think we're in the same boat, and even beyond Brevard, we're actually looking across lots of different universities for where we can bring talent in. I've spoken a lot and spent some time with Dr. Nicolo on how we build a better relationship with Florida Tech and bring in some of that crew. But beyond that, we're also working mechatronics apprenticeship programs. We're really working hard right now on 3D apprenticeship programs. If you look at what we're manufacturing, the components that we manufacture using 3D printing technology, our injectors, our nozzles, some of our bigger components, are made out of some pretty unique metals, and they're 3D printed. You couldn't even print them 5 years ago. So while you think about the kind of things that you need to do to get machinists trained and up and operational, it's that next generation of talent leveraging 3D print capabilities and some of those unique technologies that we're really spending a lot of time on at the moment, both at the high school level and also certainly at the college and beyond.
So RGNext at the macro, and then I'll go to the micro. RGNext has definitely got an encouragement program. We actually go into, our engineers on both coasts go into the high schools, and we are judges for the science fairs. We have an entire engineering department that works on modernization and improvement and sometimes repair of some of our equipment. So definitely there's encouragement there. On both coasts, we also look for those, we go to military bases and we go on to their TAP programs where you have military personnel who are transitioning out of the military and they're looking for employment. And a lot of that is they have functions in the military like a first sergeant. A first sergeant keeps people safe and they save themselves from themselves. Well, how does that apply to a space, our particular function? And then most locally, me personally, I've been involved with an organization called Tied Together Space Coast for a number of years, where we go into every single junior high school, every single high school in Brevard County, and we get all the male population together, and we use the simple tie in the school colors to bring them together and talk about why it's important to have a good handshake, good moral character, and why decisions at that level may affect them the rest of their life. And we do that in small groups while teaching them how to tie a tie. They keep the tie, it's in their school colors, and to understand the engagement at that level, because let's face it, a lot of our families are fatherless, and a lot of our kids are being raised by single parents, and we believe there's a need for that mentorship to go out into those schools and mentor those young men to become more than what they think they could be.
At Airbus, we do very similar things, as everybody has said. A great thing collaborating across our Airbus colleagues are same thing, kits that go into local schools. And in Florida, we collaborate with some of the commercial airplane side of our business down in Miami and the neighbors in Mobile, Alabama, coming into the Panhandle. And I will say really a big shout out to all of our employees because they love hosting kids and going into schools. There's a lot of grassroots that each of us can do and do just by being those mentors and role models and going into the schools and showing, hey, you can look like me and grow up to have a career in aerospace and wear cute shoes or whatever, that maybe you don't get the some stereotypical things about what an engineer looks like or what it takes to work on satellites. And that's something that all of us can do regardless of where you work.
Great, thank you. So unfortunately, we had a ton of questions submitted, and sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but our time is up. So I just want to thank our panelists for the great discussion this afternoon and for all of you for sticking it out. Appreciate it. And I'll turn it back to Nancy.